Hello, today I'd like to go over the initial setup and configuration of a Monowall firewall. I'd like to make sure we touch on a few points. We're going to set it up to perform network address translation, or NAT, and we're going to configure the router to perform packet filtering, and then we're going to explain the purposes of a proxy server or a firewall, which are generally one and the same. So to get started here, we're going to browse to the firewall web interface, and the default address for it is 192.168.1.1. It'll prompt us for username and password here. The username is admin and the password is mono, M-O-N-O. And then what we have here is our status page for the Monowall firewall. So to get started here, we're going to go to the system section and go to general setup. Here we can change the name of the firewall. I'll just leave it as it is. We can change the domain. We can set DNS servers in here. If we want to use different DNS servers than the ones provided by our ISP, we can define those here. And if you do decide to use different DNS servers, you have to uncheck this box so so that the DNS servers aren't overridden by what your ISP is going to provide. You can change the username, you can change the password, we can change the web GUI protocol here. We can use HTTPS if we're accessing the firewall over the internet so that it's a little more secure. The next thing we want to go to is under the interfaces section, the WAN page. And here's where we're going to define what kind of connection we have coming in from our ISP. There's static, DHCP, PPPoE, PPTP, Big Pond, which from what I understand is used outside of the US. The most popular method is definitely PPPoE, and that's the one we'll set up here. Under our general configuration section here, some ISPs, and more so in the early days of ISPs, they required you to register a MAC address with them, and what this was designed to do was to prevent you from getting on to the internet with more than one computer. So the reason that Monowall still includes this is just in case your ISP requires you to register a MAC address, you can put that MAC address here, and then all the requests going out will arrive at your ISP under this MAC address. So it basically allows you to have more than one computer on your network, and it'll use this MAC address for all your traffic going out. MTU you don't want to mess with. This is where you would input your static IP configuration or your DHCP client host name information if your ISP used that. The PPPoE configuration is what we're going to worry about. The username and password are given to you by your ISP. Most of them let you choose your username and password because your username is generally also your email address. So anyway, we're going to put our username and our password in here. I've put my super secret password in, and then these three fields are generally not used, and they're beyond the scope of this project, so we're not going to use them. Anyway, your PPTP information we put here, and then if you use a Big Pond, you'd put that in here. The last thing I want to talk about was this private networks block, and you want to check this if you're just using the Monowall for, say, your home or for your business. And basically it just adds another layer of protection for requests that come across from a non-public IP address. Again, this is a little bit beyond the scope of this project, but just check that it provides another layer of protection. So we're going to hit save here. See here that the changes have been applied. So the next thing we want to go to is our LAN interface, and this is pretty simple stuff here that basically shows us the IP address for the Monowall, which is 1.1 is the same address we used to access it initially, and then the /24 is CIDR notation for your subnet mask. Just leave it at 24. That'll give you plenty of hosts. I think 254 hosts on your LAN side. And network address translation. Let's see if we can look at our DHCP server. This will give us some more information about natting. Basically, this page is for turning on your DHCP server, and this box enables or disables it. Anyway, this is what I wanted to talk about, was the scope or the range of the DHCP server. So computers that plug into the network are going to be assigned one of these IP addresses, either anything from 100 to .199. And the cool thing about network address translation is that it takes these private IP addresses, these 192, 168, whatever addresses, and it translates them into one public IP address, which will be assigned by your ISP. And what that does is it essentially hides your computers that are behind the firewall or the DHCP server, and it uses that one public IP address for anything that's going on publicly on the internet. So you've essentially hidden all the computers that are behind the firewall, so that people inspecting or sniffing or capturing your traffic won't be able to determine what computer you're actually coming from on your LAN. So NAT is great. It addresses the problem of IP version 4 and not having enough public IP addresses for every device that's on the internet. It basically allows you to translate private IPs into public ones, so it addresses the problem of running out of public IP addresses, but it also provides security. So it's a good thing all around. Packet filtering, and to do that we're going to go into our firewall section under NAT, and you can see here that I've got a rule set up that is basically going to take HTTP requests from the web and forward them to my web server, which is sitting behind my firewall at this address, the 1.200. And if we edit this rule, we can see how it's set up. So basically, it's any traffic that's coming in across the WAN, TCP protocol, HTTP. And it's going to forward it to our internal web server, and then you can make a little description here. We'll just save that, and then you have to, of course, apply changes. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention here, if we go back to this edit rule, there we go. You can tell it when you initially set up the firewall NAT rule. There's a little box down at the bottom that you can say automatically add a firewall rule. And that's what it's done here, is it's automatically created a hole in the firewall, forwarding HTTP traffic, requests coming in on the WAN side, and it'll forward it to our web server here. And then that box that we checked on the WAN setup that said block private networks, that's the rule here that it created. So any traffic coming in from an RFC 1918 network, which is a private network, will automatically be dropped. That's what the little red X indicates, and the green arrow, of course, passes that traffic. So that's how a firewall performs packet filtering. Is when a packet comes in, it inspects the packet, it looks down the list here to see if any rules apply to it, and then sends the packet on or rejects it accordingly. The three things that we wanted to do with this presentation is show how to set up NAT and some of the benefits of that. We wanted to set up a packet filtering and show the benefits of that, and we also want to lastly define and explain the purpose of a proxy server. And basically what a proxy server does is that it intercepts or inspects messages entering and leaving the network and applies the rules that we've defined to those packets, and it also hides our true network address. So if our computer behind the firewall is 192.168.1.100, when it goes out to access the internet, it's going to leave, and it's going to be visible through its public IP address. So like I said, it's just another form of protection. It's a really slick way to address the public IP problem, and also to provide another layer of security.